Hi, welcome to Local Flavor. I'm Deborah Anderson and I'm here with Anna Schremmer from the Phillipsburg County District Extension Office.
Correct.
She does the classes for the extension, and the most popular one is the one we're going to be doing today, and it's on pie making. So Anna, what are we going to start with?
Well, first we're going to start with making the crust. And one of the first things you have to consider is what kind of flour you're going to make or use with making pastry. You have a choice of pastry flour, but you can also just use a regular all-purpose. And this is what most people use, is the all-purpose flour. And it makes great pie crust.
Is pastry flour what they call cake flour, or this is different?
No, it's actually a little different. Cake flour doesn't have as much gluten in it, and because with certain types of cakes you don't want the gluten. Like angel food cake, you don't want a lot of gluten, whereas if you're making yeast breads, you want lots of gluten, so you're going to need to use like bread flour.
That's interesting, because when I eat angel food cake, which isn't often, I feel like it has a little stretch in it. I wonder if they used a different flour.
You can't. There's a technique that if you're using all-purpose flour, what you need to do basically is reduce the amount, so you reduce the number of gluten. Pastry flour has a little less of gluten, and gluten basically is protein in the flour. And so it has a little less than what the all-purpose flour does. We can use one or the other. Sometimes here in small stores you cannot find pastry flour.
I've never seen it.
And this I got down at Call Hall at K-State, and I've also seen it over in Hayes at some of the larger stores there. But sometimes it is kind of hard to find, but it is out there.
Tell me again, which one has the most gluten?
This one.
And then cake flour has even more?
Has less.
Okay.
Less than pastry flour.
So if they were in order. Okay, gotcha.
And it has to do with the tenderness of your product that you're making. So our recipe is 2.5 cups of flour, and we can use all-purpose flour or we can use pastry flour.
And we don't have to adjust the recipe
No,
regardless? Okay.
Regardless. So,
you want to do one and I'll do the other?
Sure.
It's a face-off.
And one of the things about measuring for pastry dough, you don't have to be completely accurate. You don't have to cut off the top and make sure you have 2.5 cups. If you have a little more, a little less, that's fine. And you can actually do some dipping, and it's not going to, you're not going to get too much flour.
You said 2.5 cups, right?
2.5 cups.
I better make sure that's 1 cup. I like this pointy measuring cup. This fork does no good at scooping up flour.
No, I should have got you a spoon.
We will be covered in white when we leave. I'm behind, but you can go ahead.
That's okay.
I'll catch up.
And then we're going to add a teaspoon of salt. And it's usually a good idea to measure this over something else, because if you would happen to get carried away and get too much salt, you don't want it to get it all into your products. So measure your teaspoon of salt over, you can use this cup. I got a little carried away with.
Oh, you
and
did.
Then in this recipe, we're also going to put sugar. Now, if you are using pop, the 7-Up, Sprite, take the sugar out. What it does is it gives a little bit of sweetness. And what's nice with the sugar in your pie dough is it just makes it a little more tender than what.
Oh, so it's not about the flavor.
It does give it a little bit of flavor, but it also makes the dough tender.
Now, you mentioned the pop, and we were talking about that earlier, that you, instead of using water and sugar, you could substitute soda.
Right.
And is it 1 for 1 in terms?
Correct. It'd be the same. It'd just be 1 for 1.
The water.
And you don't want to use diet soda. You want to use just your regular, either Sprite or 7-Up.
Oh, I only have Diet 7-Up, but I could buy some.
Yeah.
What? How many of this was I supposed to put in?
A tablespoon.
Oh, that's not enough.
It's it's not too much, but yet it takes care of what some people think pie crust is kind of boring. It doesn't have a lot of flavor. And then you can use a granny fork. I love granny forks. You can use a regular fork. You can use a whisk, but you want to mix your salt and your sugar into your flour.
I used to think this was not necessary, but I have found it is necessary. Do you want to know why we finally learned it?
Sure.
I'm embarrassed to say. It's because I used to make cookies and I didn't want to dirty up another bowl, so I'd just leave my KitchenAid running and put in the dry ingredients one at a time and think it'll mix long enough. But the cookies get a little harder if you over mix the dough. So you want to have this all mixed ahead of time, so when you pour it into your dough, you barely have to mix it in. They're so much better. We have been working on cookies, as you can probably see, for many, many years, and I've just figured that part out. So in case any of the rest of you have been struggling with hard cookies, there's a tip.
Now, you use a cup of shortening, and you can either, you don't have to have the sticks. I'm doing that completely for ease today, but use Crisco sticks, and one stick is 1 cup, so you need 1 cup of shortening. Now you can also use butter. A lot of people like the flavor of butter. Some people like the half and half flavor.
Oh yeah, that's a good
And
idea.
where you put a half a cup of Crisco shortening in and a half a cup of butter in. But because of the time allotment today, we're using Crisco, and the reason is we don't have to let it cool. We don't have to put it in the refrigerator and cool. Butter, you have to do that because it has a melting point that's a lot, it melts easier, it gets softer, so you have to let it cool completely before you would be able to handle it and roll it out. Where Crisco, you don't have to do that.
I did not know that, so that's a good reason to use it. I would say better, but I don't want all those steps, so this will save us some time.
When you're in a hurry and needing to get it done, I always use Crisco, and then you don't have to cool the dough. If you do half and half, they usually recommend that you cool it for 15 minutes to half an hour. If you do your dough overnight, then you're going to need to let it set out, so you can go ahead and soften it up enough so you can roll it out.
Yeah, because you need to get it back to room temperature, don't you?
Right. But you don't want it too warm, or then you're back to having to cool it again. So, okay, now you can use either, this is a pastry blender, and you can either use your granny fork or you can use your pastry blender. I grew up using a pastry blender, and basically you just cut down through, and you can actually cut your fat in too much, and it makes it a tough dough.
Oh, over mixing again?
Yes.
Oh, I need to listen to this.
So you have to be careful about cutting it in too much. This process, there's actually 3 steps into making flaky dough. This is the first step, and that is cutting your fat into your dry ingredients. And some recipes you'll see will say you want pea-size clumps of fat and flour mixed together. I've always could never figure out, okay, pea size, that's, you know, it just doesn't quite seem, it seems kind of funny to
think about
to
vegetables.
think about vegetables, right? But I kind of like to, I always told my kids at school that it needs to look sort of like Bisquick, how that feels. You can have lumps of fat in there, but you don't want them too big. And that's probably where the green pea size comes in.
The little ones, maybe.
Mm-hmm. And it should look very much like this. Now, as I said, this is the first step for making flaky crust. What we've just done is we've covered the fat globules, which really makes me think, ooh.
I know.
But we've covered the fat globules with flour. And that's the first step. And it should make sense once we finish the 3 steps for making flaky crust.
Now this won't be totally mixed in because we still have to add a liquid, right?
Right. Okay. And it needs to be cold. So, and I will go get that.
I think mine looks pretty good, doesn't it? Let's take a break while we see if I get my pea size small enough, and we'll be back to add the fluid.
In a recent independent study that compared Nex-Tech and the local cable company, internet pages loaded 16.9% faster with Nex-Tech internet and performed better in every category tested. Leave your slow internet behind. Switch to Nex-Tech and we'll give you a month free just to try it. Plus, mention this ad and the code BESTPRICE and we'll give you a great discount too. Certain restrictions apply. Switch to Nex-Tech internet, proven to be the fastest.
We're back to finish with our crust, and Anna let me know I overmixed mine a little bit.
Yes.
If my painting teachers, TR and Sandy, are watching, you know exactly what she's talking about. So I do
Compare the
same
dough
thing.
a little bit.
Let's compare. See how hers still has flour in it that doesn't look incorporated, and mine is pretty kind of, I would call it homogeneous, because I overdid it a little. Okay.
So now we're ready to add the water to the dough, and it says in the recipe 3 to 4 tablespoons. Depending on the day, if it is a humid day, it may not take that many. If it's a dry day, it may take more. And since we've been in a drought, it's probably going to take more. Now, I also don't use a tablespoon. I just pour a little bit at a time. And if you can see in our measuring cups, it is ice water. You want your water cold. And if you get an ice cube in here, that's okay. It will melt. And just, again, pour a little bit at a time. If you don't trust yourself doing this, you can use tablespoons and sprinkle a tablespoon at a time. But just understand, you may use more, quite a bit more, or you may use quite a bit less than what the recipe calls for because of the type of day.
Well, this is consistent with what everyone says about all sorts of doughs, so I have no reason to think it's not true.
When it gets to the point of where you've got most of it mixed in, but you're afraid you may put too much water in, stop, and you can see down here at the bottom, there's a little bit of dough that's not mixed in.
Uh-huh. Do you want it mixed in?
No.
Do you
For
think
right
I need
now.
more?
Okay, yes, you need more. It needs to stick together in a ball, like what mine's doing.
Yeah.
And then what you'll do, and this is a trick I learned from King Arthur flour, is you take a spritz bottle and you're going to spritz it. That way you don't get too much water poured in, but you're just finishing it up. And you can see that one spritz took all of that dry out of mine. So yeah, you'll need a little bit more.
You don't need to wait for me. I'll be behind you.
Okay.
Maybe I added too much this time. We'll see.
Try making it come up into a ball. Now this is the second step in making your dough flaky. Is now that dry flour that was around the fat globules is now dough around your fat globules.
So we still have globs in there
Mm-hmm.
if we did it right.
Yes. After you have all of the liquid in,
Do
then
you feel like this is balling up? If I squeeze it, it does.
Yeah, I think
How's it
that's
feel?
fine. Go ahead, and you're going to need to spritz some down here at the bottom.
Okay.
But try to get as much in a ball as you can.
I don't really,
and then kind of spritz that bottom part. It's looking pretty good.
I don't know if I need a spritz. I think
You
I got
might,
it all
okay.
balled up.
Good.
Ooh, it looks like sugar cookie. It feels like sugar cookie dough. Makes me want to put some in my mouth, but I bet it's not very good.
It won't taste like sugar cookie dough. Okay, then you want to divide your dough in half, and one needs to be larger than the other one. And then you're going to form it into a hockey puck. Now on the recipe, it will tell you a flat disc, but I always told my kids at school in my pastry classes, so they have an image that they can visualize. A hockey puck is a good reference. Now you'll take the larger one of the two balls, and this is what we're going to roll out for the bottom. And we'll set our...
Now, if we used butter, we'd wrap it now and put it in the fridge.
Right, we would
Okay.
do that. I'll set this back so you can see what we're doing. Now you'll need to sprinkle a little bit of flour, and
Glad I took my ring off.
now some people like to use mats. I personally don't, but there are some nice mats that you can use that shows the size, but I just like to use the countertop. You'll need to sprinkle a little bit of flour. Don't get carried away with too much flour, because that makes your product tough. Then take your rolling pin and roll it through your flour you have on your counter and rub it in. The rolling pin that I have actually was my great-grandmother's, and I don't bring it out very many places, but I couldn't find my other ones, so.
Well, now if you lose it, you'll at least have a picture.
Okay, that's true. Okay, now when you roll, you want to roll from the center out, center back, and this way. And not this like this, because it has a tendency to tear. So you roll and roll, roll and roll. And then when I get my dough about this size, I pick it up, put a little bit of flour underneath, and turn it over. Some places will say don't turn it over, but I like to turn it over.
I like to turn it over.
Okay?
Am I doing it right?
Yes.
I need attention. No.
You are. Try to make it more in a circle.
Well, how will I know when it's flat enough? Do we use any guides or anything?
Usually, if it's all the same, you can kind of feel it. And like this is thicker than this side, then you want to make it a little.
Are we going to do the other smaller one just the same? It'll just be one's the bottom and one's the top?
Right.
Well, this might take me a little while, so let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll finish rolling out both of our crusts, and when we come back, we'll make the filling to put it in.
Angels Care Home Health, serving Russell and all the surrounding areas, is a Medicare certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing services to patients in their homes or wherever they reside.
She takes my blood pressure and listens to me breathe and asks me how I'm doing.
Whatever the need, Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Contact Angels Care today for more information on our home health services and how we can help you stay healthy. Angels Care Home Health, we serve patients.
They're growing up and getting busier. Between school, sports, dance, sleepovers, you want to make sure they can always reach you when they need to. Nex-Tech Wireless has the perfect cell phone starter plan. For only $40 per month, it includes unlimited data, calling, and texting. There are no contracts or overages, so they can call, text, YouTube, and stream all they want. Plus, smartphones start at just $150. Certain restrictions apply. Get the $40 WOW Unlimited plan at Nex-Tech Wireless.
We've got our crust rolled out, and the rest of making the pie is easy peasy quick, so we're going to go ahead and do that. You'll notice hers looks a lot better than mine. Mine was overworked, as we knew, and so I had to patch it in a few places, and it was hard to keep round, but I'm going to keep on with it anyway.
Okay, just before you roll it up, one way to tell if your pie crust is rolled out enough is to turn your pie tin over, and if there's 2 inches around your edge of your pie tin, then you have a big enough crust. And now she's rolling it up, and this is what makes it so easy to get it put in the pan, is you roll it up, then you just roll it back over the pan. And then you want to pick up your edges and pick it up and put it in like this rather than push to the outside, because your pie crust will have a tendency to shrink otherwise, and then you don't have a pie with a lot of crust in it. So I've already done
look
mine.
okay?
That looks great.
Let's make the center now.
Okay. Deb's doing the blueberry,
I decided on blueberry.
and I am doing the rhubarb. And to make the filling, you can either cook it, but we're not going to take time to do that today. We're just going to add sugar, and then you can either use cornstarch or instant clear gel. Instant clear gel makes your the filling thick as, you know, when you buy the canned filling. It makes it clear. It's not cloudy as what cornstarch or flour may do.
Oh.
If you can't find clear gel, then you can use cornstarch, use the same amount. And in here, because blueberries have more juice than what rhubarb does, we use 4 tablespoons of clear gel, and in the rhubarb, we are using 3 tablespoons.
And what about, I thought I saw you put more sugar in your rhubarb one than I got.
Right.
How much sugar did I get?
You have a cup of sugar,
Uh-huh.
and then the rhubarb has a cup and a half.
Because it's so sour.
Right, it's very sour, and so that's kind of one of the things I like about rhubarb. A lot of people make rhubarb pie with strawberry. It's because that makes it a little sweeter. And then you just dump this into your pie.
It doesn't need liquid?
No, it will make its own liquid as it cooks.
These are like pie weights. These blueberries look like pie weights already. Ooh, look at all the powder still at the bottom. Just sprinkle
And
it
then
over the
try
top.
to sprinkle it on the top, yes.
Well,
Now
that
I
didn't
have-
take very long.
A little too much.
No, we want a chubby pie. It will cook down and shrink, won't it?
Yes, it will.
Oh, yours is bigger than mine.
I
Well,
have
you do what you want.
have a little too much. I have a little, my rhubarb's cut a little bigger than your blueberries are. Okay, then we're ready to, before you do that, with a 2-crust pie, you have to moisten the outside edges.
Oh.
So put your hand in and just go around the outside edge.
We're using water. Does anyone ever use egg?
On top.
Oh, on top.
Have you ever
okay.
made glue when you were a kid to glue paper together?
Yes, paper mache.
This is what this does, is it glues the top to the bottom. Now, pie crust is really pretty forgiving, and a lot of people don't realize that, but if you have a crack or a break,
You
like
could just
I have
make that
here.
where the cut is.
you could do that. Or if you need to, you can just put a little bit of water on that, overlap it, and you'll never see it.
Aww.
Okay, then once you have your top on, then you're going to press down, and you're ready to make your edge.
Okay.
If you're a seasoned pie maker, you can pinch. If you're not, you can use a fork.
It'll probably take me a while to do the edge. Can we talk about what temperature we're going to bake these at?
We'll bake it at 400 degrees for, since these are frozen fruits, for about an hour.
400 degrees, 1 hour. I'm starting my edge, and then I know, are we going to cut a pattern in the top or not?
Yes, we will cut a slit. That's to let the steam out so that...
Did you work at the Village Pie Maker? That crust, the edge looks just like the Village Pie Makers.
Well, actually, no. I grew up doing this edge. My mom, my grandmother, and then you cut off.
Cut it off, and then we're going to cut a hole in the top and stick them in the
Yes.
oven?
Yes, and
Wow.
before we stick them in the oven, so that the edges will not burn, we are
Oh.
going to put aluminum foil around the edge. And that way it keeps it from burning.
So we got our cut, or can we just poke instead of cut? Or
You
do we
can,
need to
just
split?
as long as you go, don't go clear through to the bottom. You
Okay.
just get the top.
How about if you help me with this part, since I've never done this, and we'll take a short break, and when we
Okay.
come back, the pie will be magically done.
Are you looking to tone up in the convenience of your own home? Then join the Hayes Rec instructors for HRC at-home fitness on Nex-Tech TV. Each week, instructors will teach a new class that will be featured on Nex-Tech Channel 1 and 106 multiple times during the day. So tune in and tone up with HRC at-home fitness on Nex-Tech TV.
Did you know?
It's not just water, it's better water.
Better Water Smith Center completes all your hydration needs. They sell Lundy spring systems, including water softeners, reverse osmosis, water coolers, and bottled water. They won't just install your system, they will service and repair it too. Better Water can repair Echo water systems and all other major brands. They offer softener salt sales and delivery for your convenience. Serving all of Northwest Kansas.
It's not just water, it's better water.
Welcome back to Local Flavor and our pie episode, and our pies are finally finished. They took forever, trust me. How long were they in there?
It took about, since they had frozen fruit, it took about an hour and a half.
Now, how could you tell when they were done?
In the middle, it started to bubble up, and you can kind of see on the pie where it bubbled through, especially
Yeah,
here
mine's
on
like
yours.
boiled.
Yes, and that's when you see that steam. Sometimes I call it breathing. When the crust comes up and goes down, you know that it's time for it to come out, that the middle is cooking.
Now look how some of mine came out. I saw you put a foil in the oven before. Well, it was a good idea because this is a mess.
Right, that way you can just take the foil out and you don't have to clean your oven.
I'm gonna start cutting mine up. We're having a taste off of pie. She'll have a better crust, but I do have blueberry, so I think that's gonna edge me over you. We'll see.
That's probably right. But, and being hot, the filling probably will not
Stay put.
And always the first piece that comes out, I may borrow
It's a mess,
yours
yeah.
because it's smaller.
Yeah, these are not the greatest little spatulas. Look though, remember when I put it in, it was just round blueberries with powder on them, and now it looks like it came out of a can because of how that all melted together. I'm gonna go ahead and taste it real quick. Mine. Oh, I should give you some of mine. I don't think you can tell I messed up my crust at all. Let me give you a little bit of mine. I like the sugary in it. You gonna give me a little of yours?
Sure.
Oh,
There we go. I'll just put them both on the plate
Okay.
so you can see both together.
I love it.
Less dishes to wash that way.
Okay, well, I can't declare the winner until I taste yours.
I'm going to take. Okay, mine's a little soupy. It came out of the oven a little later than yours did, so it hasn't had
As much time to set up.
But it has really good flavor. I love.
Well, I have a rhubarb plant growing at home right now, so we'll see if I'm gonna cut it. They're both pretty good.
They're both excellent.
Must be that thing. Well, let's go have some pie together and put some ice cream on it.
Sounds great.
Okay,
Sounds
thanks for
great.
joining us. See us next time on Local Flavor.